The assassin.
You know I break necks, call me Jack Tate. I have no regrets while your life is fading. I'm a crazy fuck equivalent to Satan. When I'm behind the mic, I feel like the greatest. You know I break necks, call me Jack Tate. I have no regrets while your life is fading. I'm a crazy fuck equivalent to Satan. When I'm behind the mic, I feel like the greatest.
What up, y'all? You're listening to Sports Talk with Tropp, and I'm your host, Katie Tropp. Well, before we get into things, I just wanted to let everybody know that if you're a regular listener, that there will not be any shows this coming Friday and next Monday because I will be out of town. I will be heading to Tucson to kick it with my homie Lex. We will be getting in the studio. He'll be teaching me how to make beats on the MPC, if you know what that is. So I'll be adding that to my repertoire in my music. Also, they have legal weed in Tucson, so definitely will be partaking in that as well. So we will have the next live show after today back on September 9th, and that is when football season begins. That's the day after the first game of the season. So sorry, there won't be 2 shows after this. No show Friday, no show Monday. All right, so let's get right into the top 10 MLB Power Rankings for this week. I almost don't want to do this anymore because for like the last, 5 weeks, it's been the same stupid team at number 1, and that would be the damn motherfucking Dodgers. Can anybody beat the Dodgers? And they still keep getting hurt. Tony Gonsolin, their star pitcher, who has 16 wins on the season. He's got like a 2.12 ERA. I know he's got a really low ERA. He's just been dominating all season long. He was just put on the IL today, but it doesn't matter. The Dodgers are still going to be good. They're still going to dominate. I'm sure they'll bring up somebody from the farm system who's just going to be another dominating motherfucker. So it doesn't even matter. But Dodgers overall record of 88-38, and I mean they are just killing everybody. I mean they have 88 wins, and the next closest team to them in wins is the Astros and the Mets, who both have 82 wins. So that's how bad the Dodgers are killing it right now. This past week they played the Miami Marlins and the Milwaukee Brewers. They're 7-3 in their last 10 games overall. Even like I just said, Gonsolin is on the IL. Well, guess what? Julio Urias, he just had a great game this weekend. He had a bunch of strikeouts, solid outing, nice win by the Dodgers as always. Mookie Betts, he continues to have another great season. Trey Turner, he's still killing it. Freddie Freeman, I mean, he's one of the most dominating hitters this year, and nobody's really discussing it because this Dodgers roster is just so stacked. It's like they've got so many stars. You can't just point out one of them. They're a whole freaking all-star roster. So, goddamn Dodgers, still number 1. Hopefully, when I get back from vacation, that'll be changed. But I won't be holding my breath on that one. And number 2 on my top 10 MLB Power Rankings of the Houston Astros, overall record of 82-47, 6-4 in their last 10 games. This past week, they played the Baltimore Orioles and the Minnesota Twins. Justin Verlander had another great, solid outing. He was the first pitcher to 16 wins this season with a 1.84 ERA. He was pulled from a start this past weekend. I think it was yesterday or the day before. He was pulled because he apparently injured his calf. It didn't look like it was anything earth-shattering, thankfully, just because, Verlander, he has been a workhorse for the Astros. Even though, I mean, even beyond Verlander, this starting pitching staff is one of the best in the league, if not the best in the league. But you definitely want Verlander, especially because the playoffs are rolling around here in the next month or so. And then, Alex Bregman, he started off the season kind of quiet, and now dude has been on fire. He's basically unstoppable. I mean, this Astros lineup, batting order, they've just been really, their offense is something else. As I've mentioned before, it seems like every game, there's a new guy who just steps it up offensively to get it going for them. But right now, Alex Bregman's really been consistent with his bat. He's been really hot the last 2 months now, and he just had yet another phenomenal week. So Astros bumped back up to 2 in the power rankings this week. Then at number 3 on my Tropp 10 MLB Power Rankings of the Atlanta Braves, overall record of 79-50, 7-3 in their last 10 games. This past week they played the St. Louis Cardinals and the Pittsburgh Pirates. Dansby Swanson, man, he is just killing it this year. He's just been a very the Braves are just kind of like the Dodgers in a sense where they have a whole bunch of all-stars, so it's really difficult to just point out one guy and his accomplishments. But Dansby Swanson, he has been killing it, and not only with the bat, but defensively, this guy has made some crazy plays. He's really the only guy who the Braves really need to get signed. I feel like if they lose him, it's not that big of a deal, but I feel like they should sign him just because they have a really solid young core, and if they get him signed, I feel like the Braves will be in line for the playoffs every single year for probably the next 10 years, just because that's a solid young squad they're building. Shortstop is one of the most difficult positions in baseball, and once you find a dude who is solid for you at shortstop, you hang on to that guy forever. And so I kind of feel like the Braves got to hang on to Swanson. He's just been having such a great year, and he had yet another great week this week. Then another great young player for the Braves, Riley. He is having a phenomenal year. He's another guy who's not only dominating behind the plate, but he is just killing it defensively. He made some huge plays this week, and then their starting pitching is just getting hotter and hotter as the season goes on. Charlie Morton had a great outing this weekend, and the Braves, while they did lose in tough fashion last night to the Cardinals, they still had a great week, and they're still the defending champs, so you still got to watch out for them. Then at number 4 on my Tropp 10 MLB Power Rankings of the New York Mets, overall record of 82-47, 6-4 in their last 10 games. This past week they played the Colorado Rockies and the New York Yankees, and Max Scherzer, his last start, he had 11 strikeouts, so this is just yet another guy. When I was just talking about Verlander, Scherzer is another guy who has been in the league for quite some time and who just continues to dominate. He just had 11 strikeouts in his last outing. Starling Marte, he is a huge offensive force for the Mets, along with Pete Alonso. Then you've got Brandon Nimmo, who's been having a solid season all around, but the last couple of weeks he's been on fire. And then another starting pitcher who had a phenomenal outing this week, Peterson stepped in, and he actually threw for 6 shutout innings in a win against the Rockies earlier this week. So the Mets, they have been solid all season, and they continue to be solid all the way through August and into September. Then at number 5 on my Tropp 10 MLB Power Rankings, I've got the St. Louis Cardinals. Overall record of 74-54, 7-3 in their last 10 games. This past week they played the Atlanta Braves and the Chicago Cubs. And Tyler O'Neill, he's been a guy who's been very streaky this year, but the last couple of weeks he's been on some, and he really came through last night, especially. He hit a huge home run to get the Cardinals the win against the Braves last night at home. Adam Wainwright, he pitched a great gem last night. That's another old guy who's been in the league for a minute, who's pitching out of his mind. But the Cardinals as a team overall, they're just a really solid team. They have so many good players who are providing them offense, who are making some solid defensive plays, and then their starting pitching is really good. Their relief pitching is probably their biggest weakness, but right now the Cardinals, they've been a very solid team the last month and a half. Then at number 6 on my Tropp 10 MLB Power Rankings of the New York Yankees, overall record of 78-50. 78-50. Yeah, it kind of looks like I wrote down 58, but I'm pretty sure that says 50. I could be wrong. No, I think it's 50. Anyways, regardless, they have 78 wins on the season. 5-5 in their last 10 games. This past week they played the Oakland A's and the New York Mets. They actually swept the Mets and then kind of fell apart against the A's, which is not good because the A's are one of the worst teams in the league. But the Yankees seem to have finally got back on course a little bit with their winning ways. You know, you got Stanton back, but they did lose Nestor Cortez. He's going to be, he was put on the injured list over the weekend, so they're missing him, and that's a big deal. Although Cole had a good outing this week. He had 11 strikeouts in his outing this weekend, and he just dominated. Aaron, like I continue to talk about, Aaron Judge, he is having still a phenomenal season. He leads the league with 49 home runs, 109 RBI. So he's having a great year. Yankees are, I hate to say back on track, because they aren't really back on track, but they seem to be getting where they need to be, and they still have about a month to try and get this team back in order before the playoffs hit. Then at number 7 on my Tropp 10 MLB Power Rankings are the Tampa Bay Rays. Overall record of 70-57, 7-3 in their last 10 games. This past week they played the Boston Red Sox and the Los Angeles Angels. They're another team, kind of like the Cardinals, where they're getting help on basically from every single player on this squad. Everybody's getting hits, everybody's playing great defensively, and their pitching is lights out. I mean, even Corey Kluber, who you kind of feel like is basically washed up at this point. He's even put together a solid season, but these last couple of weeks, he's really, it's kind of like he's got his old stuff back, and this is the perfect time because the playoffs are right around the corner, so that's when you really want to get your good stuff going. Isaac Paredes, he had a solid week this week. He drove in so many runs, and he was a huge factor in why the Rays had such a good week. And then Randy Arozarena, been talking about him about the last month and a half, where he's really turned it on, and ever since he has got hot with the bat, the Tampa Bay Rays have really got it going. Then at number 8 on my Tropp 10 MLB Power Rankings, I have the Cleveland Guardians, overall record of 67-59, 5-5 in their last 10 games. This past week they played the Seattle Mariners and the San Diego Padres. Jimenez, he still is having such a great season for them offensively, but defensively as well. And the Guardians are just a very sneaky team, because I don't think a lot of people really even take them seriously. But I mean, Terry Francona is their manager, and he has been known to be a solid manager. He knows how to get his teams into the playoffs, and they just know how to get there, even though they're doing it quietly. And, the AL is a little bit different to me than the NL. I think the National League has a lot better teams, more powerhouse over there, and I think it's going to be a huge battle once the postseason hits. But in the American League, really the only dominating team to me is the Houston Astros. I used to think the Yankees were one of the dominating teams in the American League, but they've really fallen apart this last month. And so it's really difficult to try and take them seriously, or at least as seriously as I take the Astros. And so looking at the AL, I think the Guardians could definitely be a team who pulls an upset or two in the playoffs. I'm not saying they're a World Series team, by no means at all. But I could kind of see them being a team where they end up facing somebody, and they're a heavy, let's say they face the Yankees, for example. And let's just say the Yankees are a heavy favorite. I wouldn't be surprised if Cleveland is able to just take it to the Yankees and actually get a win. So that's kind of what I think about the Guardians, is they're a very well-managed team. They do have a lot of holes. Their starting pitching is good. And, they've got Jimenez. They've got Jose Ramirez, who's having a great season. Their bullpen, a little shaky. And they just seem to be a team who tends to fall apart when shit really gets going. But I really could see them being a team who shakes things up come playoff time, if they make the playoffs, because they are in one of the close divisions right now for a playoff battle. But I definitely kind of can see the Guardians being an upset special come playoff time. Then at number 9 on my Tropp 10 MLB Power Rankings, I have the Philadelphia Phillies, overall record of 72-56, 7-3 in their last 10 games. This past week, they played the Pittsburgh Pirates and the Cincinnati Reds, so two pretty shitty teams. But one thing I got to say, man, is ever since they traded for Noah Syndergaard, he has really become a much better pitcher. When he was playing with the Angels, and it might just been because of what's going on over there. I mean, they're obviously not a very well-run organization. And while the Phillies have had their moments, Syndergaard wasn't there when their drama started in the beginning of the year, and then they fired Girardi, and now here they are. But Syndergaard has really been a solid guy since he came over to Philly. And, he had a great outing this past weekend. JT Realmuto, he made some huge plays defensively. He's been making a lot of great plays with his bat, but he's made some huge plays defensively. Then you've got Castellanos, who's been a huge disappointment overall this season. I mean, he had a huge couple of years with the Reds, the last 2 seasons before this, but he's been a huge disappointment since he signed with the Phillies. But the last, I want to say, like 2-3 weeks, he's really got it going. And then they just got Bryce Harper back. He's been out since June with that thumb injury, and he's going to just DH for right now. But he's back at the right time, just to make a nice playoff run for the Phillies. So Phillies at number 9. Then rounding out my Tropp 10 MLB Power Rankings this week, I've got the Seattle Mariners, overall record of 70-58. 6-4 in their last 10 games. This past week, they played the Cleveland Guardians and the Washington Nationals. One big piece of news that happened for the Mariners this week is they signed their new phenom to a huge contract extension. Julio Rodriguez, he has just really turned it on this year. He signed a $470 million extension. So congratulations to him. He really deserves it. I mean, he's just really set the league on fire this year. And so it looks like he's going to be a Seattle Mariner, at least for now, for years to come. But then as far as how they've played this week, Rodriguez, he had a great week. But then also Robbie Ray, he has been a pitcher that nobody's talking about, but he has been one of the most dominant pitchers for this entire season. He's been a huge reason why the Mariners are playing so well, and while they are actually in line for a playoff spot, at least right now they are. And then you've also got Ty France, who has just been hitting home runs like no tomorrow. And so, yeah, you got the Mariners providing a lot of offense, but their pitching is something else. And you really got to watch out for the Seattle Mariners team, because they've been in and out of my top 10 for sure a couple times this season. But they've really been playing some really good baseball. And like I said, that AL might get weird come playoff time. So the Mariners might be another team like the Guardians who could pull some upsets there. And so let's go over how the playoff picture looks right now. Over in the AL, the Houston Astros lead their division, the New York Yankees lead their division, and the Cleveland Guardians lead their division. So those are all the division leaders right now. And the 3 wild card spots right now currently in the American League are the Tampa Bay Rays, the Seattle Mariners, and the Toronto Blue Jays. So that's how the playoffs look in the American League. Then moving over to the NL, the Los Angeles Dodgers lead their division, the New York Mets lead their division, and then the St. Louis Cardinals also lead their division. And then the top 3 wild card spots right now are the Atlanta Braves, Philadelphia Phillies, and the San Diego Padres. So that's how we are looking at the playoffs at this current point in time. And so like I said, football season is almost upon us. We did get our first taste of college football this weekend. It is what they call week 0, is what they had this past weekend. So we did get a few games. I didn't really watch any of them because they weren't really that interesting, and Texas wasn't playing. But this upcoming weekend is the first official start of college football. And since I won't be doing a show this Friday, I'm going to go ahead and discuss a couple of games that we have coming up this weekend for the kickoff of college football. Now, usually the first week of college football, they just throw you shit. Usually it's like a really good team versus a horrifying team. This week, the Texas Longhorns, they're going to open up the season against Louisiana Monroe, and it should be an ass kicking. I say that, and then I've been sitting here thinking, oh yeah, the last couple of seasons for the Longhorns have been pretty awful. Now, granted, I do think they've had a good off season. This is the second season with Steve Sarkisian as our head coach, so I do have a lot better hopes for the Longhorns this year. So I can look at Louisiana Monroe and say this should be an ass kicking. But then I say that, and it's like, oh, God, all the eggs they've laid over the last couple of years, it's really difficult for me to get excited. But, hey, Quinn Ewers is going to be our starting quarterback this year, and hopefully we can get an ass-kicking in against Louisiana Monroe this week, because in week 2 we've got Alabama coming to town. So, yeah, we'll see how that goes. So, Texas, hook 'em horns, kick some ass this weekend. But then the two, I'd say, most interesting games out of the ranked opponents this weekend would be number 11, Oregon versus number 3, Georgia. And, I mean, like I said, these are two ranked teams. Georgia, they are the defending national champs. I think Georgia is still the best team in the league. I think they should actually be favored over Alabama, not only just because they won the national championship last year. They also beat Alabama last year. But just their recruiting and the class that they have coming in is a very, very good class this year. And not that Alabama has a shitty team coming in. It's just that I think Georgia's coming in with some hot momentum, and they are favored this weekend over Oregon. And I do think they will get the win over Oregon. But this should be a very interesting matchup just because I don't really know what to expect from Oregon this year. But I do expect Georgia to be a powerhouse this year, and I expect them to compete for a playoff spot and a national championship spot. And then the second game of interest this weekend in college football is number 5, Notre Dame versus number 2, Ohio State. Right now, Ohio State is favored, and I'm going to lead towards Ohio State just because Notre Dame, they've got a new coach. They kind of have a new system coming in. Ohio State, they're kind of the same team that they were last year, still pretty good. I have already expressed my doubts on Ohio State this year. I don't really consider them to be one of the, quote, best teams, at least coming into the season. But a win over Notre Dame would actually, that would be a big deal, and that would be a good start to the season. But if they lose to Notre Dame, well, then that's a bad loss right to start the season. So those are the couple games of interest in college football this coming weekend. And now let's move it over to the NFL, because the NFL's first game is officially next Thursday. But there was a little bit of news before I get into the Thursday night game next week, and then also my NFL postseason predictions. So today, the news broke that looks like Jimmy Garoppolo, as I have kind of been saying the last, I want to say, couple of months, is that Jimmy Garoppolo is going to end up staying with the 49ers. Now, it looks like he is restructuring his deal to be paid a lot less, because they're going to stick with Trey Lance as their starter. At least that's what they're saying for now. It looks like Jimmy G is going to be the highest paid backup quarterback, which I don't think that's an issue. I think that's actually a good thing to have a good, solid backup quarterback, especially if Trey Lance ends up not being that good, or if he gets injured. You never know what's going to happen. So I'm not shocked or surprised that Jimmy Garoppolo is still going to be a 49er. But this could also end up making him trade bait if another quarterback gets injured in the middle of the season, and somebody's really desperate to trade for him. They won't have to pay him a whole lot of money since he just restructured his deal. So Jimmy G going to be staying with the 49ers. And then also today, the Jacksonville Jaguars ended up trading their wide receiver Laviska Shenault to the Carolina Panthers, which I think is a good move by the Panthers, because I did mention that I felt like their wide receiver depth was a problem. And I think this definitely helps them, because I think Shenault, he actually played really well last year for the Jaguars. So that does say a lot. I don't think he's like a number one guy, but I definitely think he's going to give them some depth at the receiver position. So that's a good move for the Panthers. I don't know. I don't know if I would say it's a good move for the Jaguars because they could use all the offensive help, but hey, who knows? And then in just some randomly weird news, yesterday, the Washington Commanders rookie running back Brian Robinson was shot. Now he did survive, and he seems to. It sounds like he's gonna be okay. But apparently, it was a planned carjacking by two. They said two minors. So fucked up situation, and it's crazy because this is not the first time this has happened to a player who plays for Washington. If you'll remember, many years ago, safety Sean Taylor, he was shot in somebody broke into his house and shot him, and he ended up dying because they shot him in his main artery in his leg. So luckily for the rookie running back here, he is. He's going to walk away, and obviously we don't know what if his injuries are going to prevent him from playing at all this season, or what. But at this point in time, he's alive, and just a very random occurrence that happened for Washington, but also more drama for Washington. So should shape up to be a really great season for the Washington Cum Faces. All right, and moving on to NFL opening night. Next Thursday, September 8th. First game of the season. It's a doozy, too. Buffalo Bills at the Los Angeles Rams. I almost just called them the St. Louis Rams. Wow. And they haven't been in St. Louis in a minute. So, and they just won the Super Bowl. But that's just what happens when you are a fan for many, many years. And they were in St. Louis. Kind of difficult to call them new names and city names and such. But anyways, the Buffalo Bills will be in LA playing the Rams. I expect this to be a high-flying offensive night. The Rams will be lowering their banner, of course. And banner nights are always weird, and no matter what sport. Sometimes you'll lay an egg, or sometimes you will play an amazing game. Right now, the Bills are actually favored by 2.5 points, which I thought was kind of weird. But I mean, in my opinion, I've already said it that I think the Bills are going to be the best team in the league this year, and so I actually will be taking the Bills in this matchup, just because I do think they are the better team. But I think it's going to be a close offensive shootout, and going to be a great opening night of football. So now let's get into my NFL postseason predictions. You know, I made all my predictions on the South, the West, the North, and the East teams, and now let's go ahead and break it down and get all the way down to my Super Bowl 57 predictions. So let's start it off over in the NFC. I don't know if you've noticed, but I do start out everything with the NFC, and I'll tell you why, because I'm an NFC girl, Dallas Cowboys fan for life. And no matter what, I always lean towards the NFC. So when I'm doing like predictions or when I'm talking about the postseason or anything, I always start with the NFC, no matter what. So if that's something you have noticed and you're like, bitch, why are you always starting with the NFC? Because I'm an NFC kind of gal, bitch. So let's start off with my postseason predictions over in the NFC. I think the number one seed is going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with a 14-3 record. They're going to win their division, the NFC South. Tom Brady's back. Looked great in that preseason game. Like I stated, I didn't question his commitment to the game or anything, so I was not worried at all about Tom. And I just expect the Bucs to get back to work and to have a very solid season. So I expect them to be the number one seed in the NFC. Then I've got the number two seed, the Los Angeles Rams, with a 13-4 record. I've got them winning the NFC West, just because I think they're going to be they did not miss a step, in my opinion. As a matter of fact, they became an even better team. And actually, if you'll remember last year, they didn't even win their division. The Cardinals did, and they they really actually had kind of like an up and down season. They really weren't a very consistent team. They just kind of were that team who made a great playoff run where they got really hot in December and then rode the regular season out with a bunch of wins and then rode all the way through the postseason and got a bunch of wins that way. And then they ended up the Super Bowl champs. So I do think they've made improvements even though they are the Super Bowl champs. You know, they picked up Bobby Wagner. They picked up Allen Robinson. And I think Allen Robinson is probably the best pickup they've made because they already have Cooper Kupp. And they did lose OBJ, who only made an appearance kind of like halfway through the season last year, but he did make a big splash for them once he started to get it going. But I think Allen Robinson, he was a number one player over in Chicago, and he just really couldn't get. They're not an offensive team in Chicago. So now that he's with the Rams, I actually expect him to excel. And with Cooper Kupp getting a lot of attention, I feel like he's going to be open a lot more. And I kind of see Matthew Stafford clicking immediately with Allen Robinson. Then the number 3 seed in the NFC, I've got the Green Bay Packers with a 13-4 record. I've got them winning the NFC North, and it's mostly just the Aaron Rodgers factor. He's coming in the season very relaxed, very zen-like, and there was no drama this offseason. Everybody kind of tried to make drama between him and Davante Adams, but it wasn't a rift between Adams and Rodgers. It was a contract situation between Davante Adams and the Green Bay Packers, and it just didn't work out. That's really what that was. So there really wasn't any drama for the Packers, and so I really expect the Packers to just have a good season. I expect Aaron Rodgers to have a good season, and I've got them at the number 3 spot. Then at the number 4 seed in the NFC, I've got my Dallas Cowboys with a 12-5 record. I've got them winning the NFC East. As I've mentioned before, I'm coming into this season with absolutely zero expectations for the Cowboys. I do expect them to be at least a decent team, but I won't be shocked if they have a rocky road, especially to start the season because the beginning of their schedule is really tough. But if they are able to play as good as their roster actually is, which is always a big if with this team, they should be pretty solid. Luckily, they are in a horrible division. One of the worst in the league. I actually would probably say, in my personal opinion, I think the AFC South is just a slight bit worse than the NFC East, but it's kind of a coin toss at this point. So I do have them at the number four seed with kind of a bumpy season, but they still make the playoffs. Then at the number 5 seed in the wild card spots, I have the Arizona Cardinals as the first wild card spot with a 10-7 record. I just kind of expect their season to be up and down. First, they're not going to have DeAndre Hopkins to start the season. He's going to be missing the first, 6 to 8 games. I can't remember. I think it's 6 games that he's going to miss. Regardless, he's missing about the first half of the season. And he's a huge receiver. He's one of the best receivers in the league. And while I think Kyler Murray is a good quarterback, having DeAndre Hopkins out there is a huge weapon. And so I think that's going to cost them a few games to start the season. I kind of view the Cardinals as more of a second half team rather than the beginning of the season team. I kind of feel like they're going to be up and down to start, but they'll make the playoffs in the end. Then at the number 6 seed in the NFC, I've got the Minnesota Vikings with a 10-7 record. I expect them to have a great offense this year. You've got Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen as their 2 receivers, and both of them are number 1s. So when one of them gets all the attention, the other one's going to be wide ass open. So that's going to be crazy. Then you've got Dalvin Cook. If he's able to stay healthy, which is always a big if with this guy, but he, when healthy, is really a top 5 running back. I mean, he's a powerhouse. If he gets out in the open, you can't catch him, and he's not afraid to take you on right at the line. So I expect the Vikings to have a very solid offense. Defense is where I have a lot of questions about them, and that's why I have them as a wild card team and not winning their division. But I do expect them to have a pretty solid season. Then rounding out the NFC at the number 7 seed, I have the Philadelphia Eagles sneaking in at the last wild card position with a 9-8 record. I don't really think the Eagles are going to be that good of a team. I just think they're going to be that team that just magically gets in, backs their way into the playoffs, and then they back their way out in the first round. So I've got the Eagles in there at the last number 7 seed in the NFC. And moving on over the AFC, my number 1 seed, I have the Buffalo Bills with a 14-3 record. I've got them winning the AFC East. Like I've said before, I think they're the best team in the league. They really don't have a lot of weaknesses. They added Von Miller, who I think just gives them the veteran leadership that they needed, that championship quality to help them get to that next level. And so I really expect the Bills to be one of the best teams in the league and to be the top seed in the AFC. Then at number 2, I have the Baltimore Ravens with a 12-5 record. I have them winning their division, the AFC North. I really just think they're going to be a really good, typical Ravens team where they're going to dominate with the running game because they've got all the running backs this season, solid offensive line. Lamar Jackson's nice and healthy. He's gained some weight, so he's gained some muscle, so hopefully he's able to stay a little bit more healthy this year. And then they've got their stacked defense where last year they were annihilated by injuries. I mean, it started right as training camp started and rolled all the way through the end of the season. They were running on fumes as the season ran on. So I really expect the Ravens to be back to their typical well-coached team, solid ground attack, and amazing defense. I'd say their biggest weakness is the wide receiver position, but I think Lamar Jackson is good enough to make this team one of the best in the AFC. Then at the number 3 seed, I have the San Diego, almost called them their old stomping grounds, the Los Angeles Chargers, I've got them at the number 3 seed with an 11-6 record. I've got them winning probably the best division in the league, the AFC West. And I really have the West beating up on each other. As a matter of fact, once we get to the wild card, you're going to see I might have another team or two from this division making the playoffs because that's how good I think this division is. I think they're going to beat up on each other, which is why I gave the Chargers an 11-6 record. I think they're a better team than that record says. I expect Justin Herbert to have a breakout year. I expect him to actually have an MVP caliber season. I don't think he's not my MVP pick. I will get to my MVP pick after I make my Super Bowl picks. But I definitely think he's going to be in line for it just because you could just see him really he's about to explode. You could just see it. Offensively, this team's going to be great, and they made some huge improvements defensively by adding Khalil Mack to the front there, and J.C. Jackson to the secondary. So I really think the Los Angeles Chargers are going to be a really solid team this year, and I think they're going to end up winning the AFC West. Then at the number 4 seed, I have the Indianapolis Colts with an 11-6 record, and I've got them winning their division, the AFC South, the worst division in football, in my opinion. But I think they made some great moves by trading for Matt Ryan. I think that gives them at least a solid quarterback. Obviously, he's not what he used to be. He's not the MVP he used to be. But I think he's good enough. He's got a lot of, got Jonathan Taylor in the backfield. He's got Pittman at receiver. He's got a really good offensive line, which is what he really needs. And then obviously their defense is, I feel like, going to be probably top 3 in the league. So he's got a really good team surrounding him, and I expect the Colts to win their division. Then at number 5 in the AFC, I've got the first wild card. I have the Denver Broncos. Yep. Another AFC West team. I've got them going 10-7. And I just have them turning it around just because they added the piece that they needed, and that was that quarterback. They traded for Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Probably has the most beautiful pass you will ever see. And I mean in literal football history. As a matter of fact, I think the prettiest pass of all time is John Elway, and so it's kind of ironic, coincidental that Russell Wilson is playing for the Broncos because I think Russell Wilson is right up there with the prettiest pass, him and John Elway. But I definitely think Russell Wilson is exactly what they needed. Their offense outside of Russell Wilson is okay. It's not that great. It's definitely an improvement over what Seattle was giving him. He has an improved offensive line. He's got a solid ground attack, especially with Melvin Gordon back there. The receiving core is okay. He's got Jerry Jeudy, but beyond Jeudy, it's pretty shaky. But since Russell Wilson, he is that type of quarterback who makes the receivers around him better. I expect him to make this entire team better. They do have a solid defense, so I really expect them to get some help from this defense. But I've got the Broncos coming in at a wild card spot at number 5. Then at the number 6 seed in the AFC, I've got the Miami Dolphins with a 10-7 record. And I think they also made some huge improvements where they needed to. I still think Tua Tagovailoa, he's an okay quarterback, but they made the moves that they needed to do to give him all the weapons to succeed. They traded for Tyreek Hill, who's going to give him a huge weapon right there. Then you already have him and Waddle. Waddle created waves last year with each other. So they already have that connection. So you've got Waddle, you've got Hill. Then they also got Chase Edmonds in the backfield and Raheem Mostert. The offensive line is stacked. So offensively, I expect the Dolphins to be pretty good. Defensively, there's a lot of questions. They're coming in with a new system, a new coach, and they're still a team that's got a lot of drama, and they're in a lot of disarray when it comes to the front office and their owner, and just a lot of bullshit going on with them. So I definitely don't expect them to win their division, especially because they got the Bills in it. But I expect them to have a pretty solid season and sneak into the playoffs. And then my last team making the AFC playoffs, the wild card spot, I've got the Las Vegas Raiders. Yes, that is my third AFC West team I've got making the playoffs in the AFC this year. I've got them at a 9-8 record, so it's an okay record. But I do think they're going to have their bumps in the road. Offensively, I think they're going to be a very solid team. They've got Josh McDaniels at their coach. He's an offensive genius. So offensively, I think him and Derek Carr are going to click. They traded for Devontae Adams, and Adams and Carr, they already have a rep together because they played college ball with each other. Then you've got Jacobs in the backfield, a pretty decent offensive line. It's just defensively where I have a lot of questions with them, especially in that secondary. They're an okay team. But since they are in a tough division, I think they're gonna be battle tested, and they're gonna get some good wins, and I think they're gonna sneak into the playoffs in that last spot. So my wild card matchups in the NFC would end up as the Eagles versus the Rams, which I would have the Rams winning that matchup, of course. Then the Vikings versus the Packers, and then I would have the Packers winning that matchup. And then the Cardinals versus my Cowboys. And of course, I'm going to take my Cowboys in that matchup because I'm a delusional Cowboys fan. What the fuck can I say? Then in the AFC wild card, my matchups would be the Raiders versus the Ravens, and I have the Ravens winning that matchup. Then the Dolphins versus the Chargers. I have the Chargers winning that matchup. And then the Broncos versus the Colts, and I have the Broncos winning that matchup. So my divisional NFC divisional matchups would be the Cowboys versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And, I'm a deluded Cowboys fan, so I'm picking my Cowboys to actually win and beat good old Tampa Bay. And then the Green Bay Packers versus the Los Angeles Rams, and I have the Packers winning that matchup. And then my AFC divisional round matchups would be the Denver Broncos versus the Buffalo Bills, and I have the Bills winning that matchup. And then the Los Angeles Chargers versus the Baltimore Ravens, and I have the Ravens winning that matchup. So my NFC Conference Championship would break down to be the Dallas Cowboys versus the Green Bay Packers, and this is where my delusions end, and I actually have the Green Bay Packers moving on to the Super Bowl in that matchup, just because I don't think the Cowboys are Super Bowl ready. Honestly, they're probably not championship ready, but guess what? These are my predictions, and I'm allowed to do whatever the fuck I want with them, so that's what I did. And then my AFC Conference Championship would be the Baltimore Ravens versus the Buffalo Bills, and I have the Bills moving on to the Super Bowl. So my Super Bowl 57 matchup is the Green Bay Packers versus the Buffalo Bills. And since I've stated it many times before, since I've been making my my NFL season predictions, I've got the Buffalo Bills as the Super Bowl 57 champs, winning their first ever Super Bowl. And I have them just having a phenomenal season offensively. As a matter of fact, I've got a couple of end-of-season awards that I'm going to go ahead and predict as well. As the MVP of the season, I've got quarterback Josh Allen of the Buffalo Bills winning the MVP. Defensive player of the year, I have Dallas Cowboys linebacker Micah Parsons winning that. Offensive player of the year, I have Vikings wide receiver Justin Jefferson winning that. Rookie of the year on offense, I have Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver George Pickens, who has really been making waves through training camp, and then even in his preseason games, he looks solid. So I've got him as the offensive rookie of the year. And then my defensive rookie of the year is going to be Aiden Hutchinson, defensive end of the Detroit Lions. So those are my picks for how I think the postseason is going to go. So yeah, my Super Bowl 57 matchup, I got the Green Bay Packers versus the Buffalo Bills. And I've got the Buffalo Bills winning it all. So we will see. We've got football beginning next Thursday. So we've got a long way till Super Bowl 57, which is just fucking awesome because nothing is better than the start of football season. It just gives you goosebumps, man. I just love it. Just even thinking about the season until the Cowboys start fucking up, and then I have to hear that shit all season long, and then be pissed off about how shitty they're playing. We'll see how long this lasts, but yeah, I'm pretty excited. We got football next week. Like I said, we will not have a show this coming Friday or next Monday. I will be back on Friday, September 9th, to discuss the Thursday night matchup between the Buffalo Bills and the Los Angeles Rams. And then we will break down the week 1 matchups. I will also be doing my head-to-head picks with the homie Simon Ruvalcaba. If you picked up listening to me from his show, I will be back with him. Not only doing the head-to-head picks, but we will be back to doing the Tropp It Like It's Hot segment as well, where I just break down rando things in sports. So yeah, look forward to that. I'm going to be doing a lot of talking the next couple of months because also, not only am I going to be doing the head-to-head with Simon, the Tropp It Like It's Hot with Simon, but I'm also adding in a third show of Sports Talk with Tropp during the week, during football season. Every Wednesday, I'm going to add in my Top 10 Power Rankings show because obviously Monday would not be a good day to do Power Rankings since we have Monday Night Football, and that could obviously affect teams in the Power Rankings. So I still going to do Monday shows for sure because that's the schedule I've set every Monday and Friday. And then it's like, so I do want to talk about the Thursday game as well. So I'll probably break down some college football on Wednesday shows as well. But so yeah, once football season begins, I will be having shows every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and then plus gabbing it up with my homeboy Simon. So once I get back, it's going to be non-stop talking sports. So get ready for it, y'all. Enjoy this week of baseball. Enjoy the weekend of baseball and college football. And I will talk to you guys when I get back from Tucson. And we will have us the beginning of the NFL 2022 season. All right, fools. I will talk to you on September 9th.